Welcome to another edition of Quoth the Raven, Lewis Bright Raven. I'm your host, Lewis Bright Raven, 29-year veteran writer, illustrator, and editor of comics, science fiction, fantasy, horror, and role-playing games. And it is Friday, October 8th, and we're running a little bit late. Just to be poetic and rhyme today. I don't know if my rhythm of my rhyme is going to be on time today. No, it's not. 30 minutes past our scheduled time. Had some technical difficulties this morning. I'm still kind of groggy from trying to wake up as well. So bear with me, if you will, please. Hope you're having a good week, and I hope you're looking forward to the weekend. I know I am. But let's get to work. We've got a book to review. And it is The Fire of Theseus from Humanoids Publishing for $19.99. The writer's Jerry Frissen. Artists are Francesco Trifogli for the interiors and Gerald Perel for the cover. The colors are by Antoine Pedron. Genre is mythology. Released September of 2020. This is a modernized retelling of the classic Greek myth of Perseus, or Theseus. I don't know why it says Perseus. It's actually Theseus in the Minotaur, where Theseus is gender swapped to be a female, and most of the magical and or supernatural elements are removed from the tale to give it a grimmer, more realistic bent. The book says it's time for Athens to know the true story of one of its greatest heroes, the warrior who defeated the monstrous Minotaur, the one who goes by the name of Theseus. This is her story. When the former queen of Athens is brutally murdered by the king's soldiers, their illegitimate daughter is sold into slavery and told that if she had been born male, her fate would have been different. Beaten down both physically and morally, she vows to slay those who have doomed her to a life of suffrage, including her own father. With the fire of vengeance fueling her, she finds herself battling more than just man and legendary beasts, but her own demons, and she may just change the very fate of Athens along the way. Well, what I think of this book is that Frissen made way too much Spartacus and early Games of Thrones ideas with this version of the story. There's a lot of gratuitous female nudity, sex slave trafficking, and rape and other stuff in here, and it kind of ruined the point of the myth for me. This is quite sad. There's no doubt that the Comicsgate hate crowd will point to this as just yet another example of bad comics, citing the gender swap as the problem, when in reality the problem is all the gratuitous mature readers elements that are the problem. You could have done a very nice job, told the story without the gratuitous nudity and aggressively sexist overtones. Remember how realistic that may or may not have been in the world in that era of our history. Trifogli's art is all right. I'm not wowed by it, but it does the job effectively enough. Frissen's story is kind of what is lacking on multiple points. By taking out most of the supernatural magical elements of the myth, the story becomes a little more than a basic revenge-driven plot with a female protagonist. A plot that is often one-dimensional and derivative of similar works, such as the parts of TV series I cited earlier, Spartacus and Game of Thrones, which sported their own detractors for how they represented their women and sexual relations in the context of their stories. If you guys remember, especially early on in the first few episodes of Game of Thrones, there's a lot of backlash for how women were presented in the story, even though that's what was written in the story. So, it's one thing to read it in type, in a prose novel. It's one other to see it graphically depicted in comics or graphically depicted in a film or a television series. You don't necessarily need to have the visual painted out graphically right there in front of you all the time. But that is what it is. the execution of the story doesn't match the seemingly feminist aspirations that I think Frissen's trying to go for. The plot and art are somewhat heavily skewed towards that female nudity and violence against females, and it kind of fetishizes female violence and other females too, at different points of the story. And again, this is a story from an age that will have a lot of gory violence and women on women and fighting and other things going on, as it was legitimately a violent time in world history. But I think in a way this violence is portrayed from and for a male perspective to the point where it gets a little bit uncomfortable reading at times. But again, I do get where Frissen is trying to come from. He wanted to break down, strip away the magics and what makes the original legend seem polished and slick and captures your imagination, whereas the so-called true story is supposedly much grimier, there we go, and uncouth, and that's fair enough. There is an actual point to the story being done this way, and in some ways it does its job fairly well. Especially in the bookends of the story, I guess you could say, where we're showing an Athens storyteller explaining Theseus to be a male instead of a female, because in their world they would never believe that a woman did this, type thing. So that part of it was done well. It just kind of got carried away in the overall storytelling, I think, a little bit. Because there's a limit to that. And taking out your fantasy elements to make it grim and gritty takes away a lot of the charm that the original myth possessed in the first place and made it worth telling as a story. So I think Frissen kind of missed the boat a little bit there on that side of it. But it is what it is. This is definitely for mature readers, because of the nudity and the context of why there's nudity in the story. It's nobody under the age of 17 for this, unfortunately. Rating is 2.5 stars because the story just doesn't have that fantastical element to it, and that's kind of why you want to read this kind of story, is for the fantastical element. They don't even really play the game of the Minotaur per se. The Minotaur is just a really large, oversized male who got called the Minotaur and stuff like that in this. So it's a little bit, like I said, he goes way too far in making it the true story as opposed to doing it with some pizzazz, I guess you could say. So here's some of the artwork for it. And the art here is nice. Again, this is art. It's by Francesco Trifogli and Antoine Pedron for the colors. The line art is very nice. I did my best to pick some pages here that are not featuring some of the stuff, but even then, you can see there's topless women in some of the pages, panels, and I guess this is what's supposed to be how things were back then. I don't know, but it seems to me if the men had to wear robes and stuff, why didn't the women? It's just kind of weird, but it is what it is. Mm-hmm. And then this is the end of the story, where Theseus brings the head of the Minotaur, which is really not the head of the Minotaur, but able to pull it off, the joke, and trick Crete into thinking that the Athenians stopped the Minotaur and freeze Athens as a city. And the artwork, like I said, is very nice. It's not necessarily as nice as the painted cover of the graphic novel hardcover. This is a completely different cover, and that makes a difference too. And I was kind of expecting this as the cover, not realizing it was a different artist. I probably would not have bought it if I had realized it had the other artist in it. Not that the other artist is bad; he's not. But this is one of the problems I have with people doing cover artists versus interior artists. I think you should have your interior artist represented properly. But that being said, it's a little bit on the lesser side, unfortunately, but not because they deliberately botched it or because they did a poor job. I just think they're maybe a little bit misguided in the direction they were going for and what they were trying to do, I think, in this one. Okay, that takes care of today's review. Tomorrow, we will have Death of a Dark Lord by Laurel K. Hamilton. This is a prose fiction book that will take place in the Ravenloft side of the D&D universe. We'll review that book at 1:30 p.m. tomorrow afternoon. Again, that is 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in the afternoon. And then tomorrow evening at 8 p.m. Eastern, we'll have our weekend media review, TV talk. We'll be talking about Discovery Season 3. With that said, if you enjoyed this video or you like this channel or you think others might, I really would appreciate it if you hit the like, share, and subscribe buttons to continue to get content from this channel. As always, I thank you for watching and for your support. You can reach me at Facebook at Lewis.BrightRaven, at Twitter at LewisBrightRave2. You can see my artwork at DeviantArt.com/BrightRaven. You're watching Quoth the Raven, Lewis Bright Raven on YouTube exclusively. If you have questions or you want to make comments, if you want to commission me for artwork, best place to reach me is quoththeravenlbr72@gmail.com. And if for some reason you can't reach me there, I don't give you a response either privately or publicly online on the show, try LewisBrightRaven@yahoo.com. Sometimes, usually I get my mail through Gmail. It's pretty solid, but every once in a while something gets overlooked and put in the wrong place or something like that. Okay. As always, I hope you guys have a good weekend. I will see you guys tomorrow. Have a good weekend.